Tocho sampo pa gyu trashi pa Toche tempe chinle yarngoda Pelge drolo zampe ze parache Palde lame shabla solvade Omo a guru vajra dara suma timo nisha sane karm Otta vardanya shre badra sarva siddhi hum hum Om a guru vajra dara suma timo nisha sane karm Otta vardanya shre badra varsa manya sarva siddhi hum hum Om Guru Vajradhar Suma Timo Nisha Sane Karm Utta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Hum Om Guru Vajradhar Suma Timo Nisha Sane Karm Utta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timo Nisha Sane Karm Utta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Hum Dagi Jetsun Lama Tuje Che Nyamda Dala Tuje Sikso So Gebe Shesan Dala Tendo So Uyon Sunge Nawa Tsedo So Seji Ningne Sowa Debe Tse Dechen Korlo Veso Lekshone Ila Sambe Deden Malupa Gemel Hunge Drubra Jingelo Soni sodan digdun shabe tse dunge namge yinsu lekshune labchen soni yonsu zobadan cheran yedun changra jingelo chancho parge ninsen tugun tu nyu peme sudru lekshune chancho drube gegen kunshishi tungen dela drubra jingelo Dagi lona chola chopa dan chemi samchurang imba shiwa dan chodan tumbe dudin malupa bime lungi drubraj dorna tingne tsira tamche dan techi pardu negab tamche rese kyamne lama kele me tuche chingi dala siksu Gongyab drewe nyamda dajala chechun lame tuje rabgongne Kodan sunge nawa dralme tu nyamsu nyungwe kesan tobrasho Kewa kundu yanda lama dan drame cheki pela longchechi Sadan lamge yende rabzone dorje changi koba nyurto vesho Pakyuke Kodang Dagi Lo Pakyuke Sundan Dagi Pakyuke Todang Dagi Yi Teyerme Chikto Jingelo Pakyuke Kodang Dagilo Pakyuke Sonda Dagenga Pakyuke Todang Dagi Teyerme Chikto Jingelo kyu ke kudang da ki lu ma kyu ke sun da ki nga ma kyu ke tuk da ki ten yer me chik tu jingi lo Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakyamuni Swaha Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakyamuni Swaha Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakyamuni Swaha Sangye Chedan Tsoge Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsu Chi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonam Ge Drola Pinchira Sangye Drubrasho Sangye Chedan Tsoge Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsu Chi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonam Ge Drola Pinchira Sangye Drubrasho Sangye Chedan Tsogi Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapso Chi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonam Gi Drola Pinchira Sangye Druparasho. In the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, I take refuge unto enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of. One of the specific characteristics of Buddhism is that faith is important, but it's not faith on someone that will do something for us. It's not like there is not the aspect of having faith on the Buddha that will do something for us, or in some deities, or in some gods, or something like this. In Buddhism, mainly, the main sure faith is important because faith is believing in something. Through faith, we can have aspiration. Through aspiration, we can have effort. Through effort, we can practice. Okay. But the true object of faith that we need to have, it's our own spiritual practice, is the Dharma. That's the main object of faith, actually. That's the main object where we need to take refuge, is the actual Dharma, more than anything else. Dharma means our own spiritual practice. In the time of Buddha, it is said that when taking refuge, there was not like taking refuge in the Buddha, in the Dharma, and in the Sangha. It was originally, in the beginning, it was only taking refuge in the Dharma. Then after, it came out, okay, in order to take refuge in the Dharma, you need to take refuge in the Buddha, you need to take refuge in the Sangha. But the actual refuge is the refuge in the Dharma. One of the reasons for that is because basically the process is I need to recognize which are my qualities, my potential. Once I recognize which is my potential, where I am with this body and this mind, what can I do? Which is the final goal that I can reach? Which is what is possible to be done with this potential that I have? Once we have this clear, then what's the path that I need to follow? And that's where we need to put our energy into. It's not something like, okay, in whom should I have faith, they will do everything for me. It's not exactly like that, being very open and direct. No? So, what happens with that is that when we say, okay, we need to have faith in the Dharma, it's not just believing in something and just it will be done for us. We need actually to follow a path. We need to follow our own practice. This is the way for it to happen. There is no other way actually through which this can happen. So because of that, we say that first of all we need to take refuge in the Dharma. This is the most important refuge of all. Even because if we take all the Buddhas on one side, and we take the power of all the Buddhas, and on the other side we put the power of the karma of every individual being, and in the middle we put us. All the Buddhas together, if we put on a scale, they are not heavier than our own karma. They have the same weight, it is said. Which means the power of influence that a Buddha have on us is just to interact with us. No one, even all the Buddhas together, can make us experience something that we have not created the causes to experience. That can be positive or negative. So we can have all the enemies of the world put together. They are not able to make us to experience something that we have not created the causes to experience. At the same time, we can put all the Buddhas together on the other side. They cannot make us to experience something good that we have not created the causes to experience ourselves. So the only way is that through actually developing our own path. And because of that, the Buddhas are very important because they show us the path. The Guru is fundamental because he gives us the path. But then after we need to take refuge ourselves in the path. And what does it mean to take refuge in the path? It's not to say, oh, I have so much faith in the Buddha, in the Dharma, the path is so beautiful, so wonderful is the Dharma, please Dharma do something for me. To take refuge in the Dharma means sit down on the cushion, meditate. It means to study, it means to comprehend, it means to meditate. It means our own spiritual practice. Okay, there are different ways of practicing, but it means to put our own effort and to follow the path. And for that reason, it's like we need to have good methods that will help us on this path. Okay, this is what when we say taking refuge in the Dharma, it has two aspects. One means putting in practice the teachings and the method. Another one meaning means finding these methods and taking refuge in it, which is just much more than a method. It's a complete system for us to reach the state of Buddhahood. So, whenever we look for that method, it is very important. It's like, let's say it was like drinking water. When we go to drink water from a river, we must not only find water, we must make sure that the water that we are going to drink, it's coming from a pure source originally, and in between it was not polluted. Because just drinking water is not enough. If I am thirsty, having water is not enough, I need to drink it. And just to drink water is not enough. I must be sure that I'm drinking a water that is not polluted, because if I drink a water that is polluted, momentarily it looks like it's taking away my thirst, but finally it's harming me. No? I remember one time in Tibet, many years ago, I was a kid. And then we were in the city of Tingri, where there is a cave where Milarepa stayed for some time. So we went to see this cave, we stopped there in the city, it's near the border with Nepal. So we went there, it was I think in 91. So we were there in this place, And then I remember I wasn't nearby. I came out of the bus and there was a village and there was a sort of a little river running by. And the water looked very clear. So I went down to drink the water. And came one Tibetan girl running and she almost pushed me saying, "Don't drink that water." No. And finally I understood, because that was the water which the sewage system of the village was passing by. Basically, they will do pee-pee, whatever, in that water. So the water was not clean. It was a constant running water. So looking, it looked okay, but truly it was not a clean water. No, so I couldn't know it. So if I had drinking it, maybe something could have happened. Who knows? The point is that whenever we go to drink water, the simple fact of drinking water is not enough. We need to make sure that the water that we are drinking comes originally from a pure source, and in between it has not been polluted. This means that the practice that we do, we must make sure that it comes originally from a pure source, and in between it has not been corrupted, it has not been polluted. Okay? That's why we look always that the teachings, that the practice that we do, the teachings that we receive, the system that we follow, the path that we follow, the vehicle that we use, that it has been originally taught by Buddha Shakyamuni. That's the pure source, like the snow mountain where the water originally come from. And then in between, it has been practiced by the Mahasiddhas, by the great Panditas, by the great masters of the lineage, and it comes through an uninterrupted lineage of practitioners that have practiced in a correct way and that have gained realizations. This is the way to assure that the water remained pure. No? And then we can really receive this water. Once we receive this water, then we need to drink it correctly, which means to practice. No? Another example, Sri Rinpoche gave one example, which was, I was saying, it's not enough just to take an elevator. You must make sure that elevator is taking you where you want. Or we could say it's not enough just to take a bus in the bus station. I need to go somewhere, I wait in the bus station, a bus is coming, the first bus that comes, I jump in. No, the example Trijani Rinpoche gave, he was saying, once you need to go to a place, you are looking for the elevator, you press, then suddenly arrive one elevator, you go in, but the elevator is going down and not going up. So you must make sure when the elevator comes, which direction the elevator is going, otherwise instead of taking you up, it's going to take you down. And it's always an elevator. Similar to that, whenever we talk about having a spiritual practice, we must make sure that the spiritual practice that we follow, it's taking us in the right direction. Because sometimes we may do things that we have the best of our motivations, but it takes us in the opposite direction. This could happen. That's why it's fundamental to have a system of meditation, of practice, which we call an idam, which is a complete system for enlightenment that comes from a pure source and has been kept purely. And in the meantime, it has been proved again and again that it works. Because people have relied upon that method, have relied upon that idam, and have gained high realizations. So based on that, we have the proof that it works. So we should rely upon such method. And in the whole process in Tibet, in all these centuries, these systems, which we call yidam, which we call, is much more than a tutelar deity or a meditational deity. It's much more than that. It's a complete system for enlightenment. It's like saying, okay, the path to enlightenment is one. But to follow that path, we can use different vehicles. We can go by bicycle, we can go by car. When we choose to go by car, there are different cars that we can get. Okay, there are different models of car. Someone can take even the helicopter. You can choose different vehicles. But every vehicle should take us to the same place. Okay? So, in the same way, there are many, many, many idams. There are many, many ways and many methods and many practices. There are many ways how to go to enlightenment. Each one of them is valid, but should adapt it to each person. Some people have one that adapts better. Others have another. Some vehicles, they're very good to go through one part of the passage, then another vehicle is good for another part of the path. Okay? For those that are in the beginning, is better one vehicle. For those that are in the middle of the path, is better another vehicle. So we have different sorts of vehicles that can help us to follow the path. And Yamantaka is one vehicle. Yamantaka is not just like a Buddha or a deity. It's much more than that. It's much more than that. Yamantaka sure is a manifestation of Manjushri. There is nothing that can be more than that. But in our mind, is like, for us, it's a complete system that we can rely upon in order to follow the path to enlightenment. Okay? So finally, sure, we need to have faith in the Guru that gives us the teachings. We need to have faith in the Buddha. We need to have faith in the Sangha. But without faith in the Dharma, without taking the ultimate refuge, which is the refuge in our own practice, then it's difficult to follow. Okay? And in Tibet, in all the centuries, these vehicles, these systems of practice, they have always been taken with a lot of preciousness. Something that is like really, really, really very important and very precious. Okay? And this has been all the so-called yidams, which is the complete system for enlightenment. And then Yamantaka is one of the most important and well-known systems for enlightenment that have been transmitted within the Gelugpa tradition. Okay, so this was just to give an idea a little bit of what we say when we say, okay, Yamantaka, Guya Samaja, Hiruka, Vajra Yogini, all of this, what is this? Because the danger that I see is that because of our own cultural background, our own worldview, we may have the tendency to go to look at Yamantaka or Guya Samaja or Hiruka as a sort of a deity, as a sort of a god that will help us and do something for us. So I recite 1,000,000 mantras of Yamantaka and Yamantaka will do something for me. It's not exactly like that. Basically, it's a system for enlightenment where I need to realize, and it's a very valid method for me to follow that path. Okay? So, it's like when we talk in the Vajrayana path, the 3 jewels in which we take refuge is a bit different. Normally we take refuge in the Buddha, we take refuge in the Dharma, and we take refuge in the Sangha, the spiritual community. No? We have the Buddha, the one that shows us the path, the Dharma, the actual path to follow, and the Sangha, which is the spiritual community that helps us on our path. It's always there. When we go on the Vajrayana path, on the diamond vehicle or the Vajrayana path, it changes a little bit the way. We take refuge in the 3 jewels are not anymore Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. They're always there on the basis Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha because the Vajrayana cannot exist without the Mahayana. Okay? But the Vajrayana refuge is we take refuge in the Guru, we take refuge in the Yidam, and we take refuge in the what is called Pawodapamo. Pawodapamo is a bit a concept which is not so simple to translate, but we could say it's like the yogis and the yoginis, the practitioners of the Vajrayana, which are both with a physical body and without a physical body. Okay, like Dakas and Dakinis, and it's like deities that are also following the path, beings that are following the path, but they do not have a physical body such as ours. Okay? But basically, these are the 3 main refuges. The Sangha, it's a bit different, but we could make it similar, also because there are practitioners such as us inside. But the Dharma is the Yidam. So when we say, what is an Yidam? It's not a deity. Yidam is the path in which we take refuge. It's a complete system for enlightenment that we rely upon. That's what an Yidam is, and that's what Yamantaka is. Okay. All the systems, Yamantaka, Guya Samaja, Hiruka Chakra Samvara, Vajra Yogini, Kala Chakra, Hevajra, Tara, Manjushri, Medicine Buddha, all of these systems are complete systems for enlightenment. And each one of them has specific characteristics. And someone may say, why so many Buddhas? Why so many deities? Why so many idams? Isn't that complicating our life? Somehow we could say yes, in the sense that there was even one master, which I don't remember now who he was, if it was a Tisha. Maybe it was a Tisha. I don't remember precisely who said in Tibet, he said, you Tibetans, practice 100 deities and do not realize any. We Indians practice one and realize all. So then there was also one important Tibetan Lama, and he used to say, now I'm sorry, but I really forget the names. But it was not so long ago, and he had one practice which was Yamantaka. And he would do just Yamantaka. And when someone asked, what is your practice? And he would say, no, I only do one practice, Yamantaka. He'd say, I am there holding in one rope only very strongly. You are having many ropes trying to jump from one to the other, you will fall down more easy, I hope in one rope and I hold it very strongly. So, and the practice he was following was Yamantaka. So someone may ask, why do we have so many systems, so many Buddhas, so many deities, so many idams? Why so much? Basically, for one's own practice, one deity is enough. No doubt of that. But if we're practicing seriously, one is enough. But as the time have passed, as the centuries have passed, since the time of Buddha, different systems were taught to different people with different needs and different characteristics. In different moments of the path also. Okay? So, why we teach so many different systems, even though Rinpoche has made self-healing practice of the 5 Dhyani Buddhas, which is the essence of, it's an idam, actually self-healing is an idam. Okay, it's a system for enlightenment. But still, Rinpoche teaches all the other systems. Why? Because we are different, and some of us will connect more to one practice, other of us will connect more to another one, and we need to see which is the one that finally we connect more, and then that's the one that we should follow, because we are different. That's why we need different approaches. Each one of the practices are dealing with a different type of energy in order for us to take us to enlightenment. Because one of the important aspects of Tantra, which is really, really special, for me, when I saw this clearly, I said, wow. It was when I was in Tibet studying the commentary of Guhya Samaja. And what really touched me is that Tantra is so much down to earth. We may look at it very mystical because it's based, it uses a lot of symbology and a lot of techniques that most of us cannot understand really well. But it's really, really very solid. And one of the very important aspects is it starts from where we are. In the sense, it uses what we have. So, for example, if you have a lot of desire, it will use your desire energy, and the energy of desire as a mean for enlightenment. If you have a lot of anger, you will use your own energy of anger, of aversion for enlightenment, and so on. Okay? So this is something that it's using what we are in order to change our own way of being. So this is something very powerful also about all the systems that we have inside the Vajrayana. So because we are different, because why some of us would practice more one practice instead of another? Because our defilements are different. Some of us have more anger, others have more desire, others are more into ignorance. It depends the way we are. And then there are different moments of the path also. Okay? So this is also another aspect which is important. So me as a Lama, I have the responsibility to share, to learn more methods and to share them because we have different people. As a simple practitioner, we should just, as our own practice, actually one practice is enough. We don't need so many. But it's important to receive this lineage also because we are in a moment of transaction where the lineage has coming from Tibet and arriving here in the Western world. So it's important to keep alive all these different lineages because each one of them has a very specific technique, very specific system that works very well. So we need to be able to keep them alive because we are different and we need to adapt. So some people will practice more Yamantaka, others will go more with Vajrayogini, others will go more with Tara, and so on. And that's wonderful and that's fine. Okay? But what I want, the main issue I want to bring is that Yidam is a system. A system that we need to apply in order to follow, okay? We need to apply in order to reach the state where we want to reach. So finally, the final result is the same. It doesn't matter what is the Yidam. It's just a different vehicle, a different system taking us to the same result. Parte che non avevo detto in inglese. Just one more thing before going to the next step of starting to explain more about Yamantaka, is the fact that as we live in this moment of transition, to keep our transition, to keep alive a lineage, it's something that is very important. Because, for instance, what it takes for a system, an yidam, a practice to stop existing. It's enough that no one's retransmitted. If in one generation there is no one that transmits to someone else, even though we have all the books available, we have all the recordings of everything else, if there is no direct transmission of the initiation and people doing the practice, the lineage is gone, it's finished. No? That's why also we have this intention. One of the reasons why in April there is this intention of inviting here this important master from Tibet to give all the Vajravali empowerments, which are 45 empowerments. And they are very rare, and nowadays this lineage is being lost in Tibet. In Tibet it's still there, but there is no much of this lineage in India and in the western part of the world. So in order to keep this lineage alive also, we are inviting him to give the initiations and inviting different lamas and monks to come to receive the initiation and so on. So this is something that is also very important, which is to keep the lineage alive. This is another aspect also. Because each one of them have a very specific. When we talk about a yidam, we are actually, it's as we were saying, it's important for us to understand what it is as a system for enlightenment. And there are different approaches for us to understand what is Yamantaka, for instance. Okay, we can go through the whole explanation. Generally speaking, there are two main types of yidams. And first of all, even the word yidam is very difficult to translate. And I personally do not like to give a translation when a word cannot really give the right meaning of it. There are some words that we can use that have similar meaning. But when it's similar, it's just having one aspect, and then it's taking away the whole rest. So, for example, when you talk about yidam, sometimes it's translated as tutelary deity or meditational deity. And it's much more than that. This is one aspect. Then there's the danger of thinking that a yidam is a sort of a god that we need to ask something for. While a yidam is a complete system for enlightenment. Okay? So, even because of that, for example, when taking refuge, the difference of taking refuge between Sutra and Tantra, I explained this in English? No. I think I explained in Italian. In English, no, right? Okay. So, for example, when we talk about taking refuge, generally speaking, we take refuge in the Buddha, in the Dharma, and in the Sangha. Then in the Mahayana way, we take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and then there is the Guru. Okay, Guru, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. In the Vajrayana, it changes. The three jewels in the Vajrayana when taking refuge is slightly different. Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha are always there because Vajrayana is part of Mahayana. But the specific refuge in Vajrayana is, I take refuge in the Guru, which is inseparable from the Buddha. There's no difference between taking refuge in the Buddha and taking refuge in the Guru. So I take refuge in the Guru. I take refuge in the yidam. Instead of saying Dharma, we say the yidam. Okay. So what is the yidam? The yidam is the Dharma, is the actual system, is the actual path to enlightenment. That's in what we take refuge. And I take refuge in the Sangha, which is called the Pavo, the Virya and Virini, which means it's basically the practitioners of the Vajrayana path, both with a physical body and without a physical body, like Dakas and Dakinis. Okay? So this means in the Vajrayana, we have also like so-called, in English we may just call sort of deities, but beings that have a subtle body that also accompany us during our path. Okay? So it's the difference. But the main point here is that we don't say take refuge in Dharma in the Vajrayana, we say take refuge in the yidam. This is showing us that the yidam is something much more complex and complete than when we call a tutelar deity or a meditational deity. Okay? Sure, the Yidam, it's always manifested in the aspect of a Buddha. And here we can have two main different types of Yidams. There are some types of Yidams which actually are manifested in the aspect of a Buddha that was once a practitioner that reached enlightenment, and then after Buddha taught a system which is based on that Buddha that reached enlightenment. Like we can have the practice of Manjushri, or Avalokiteshvara Chenrezig, or there is Tara, and so on, Vajrapani. They were all people that reached enlightenment, and then there was a system for enlightenment which takes them as an example, simplifying. It's taught for us also to follow the same way. Okay? So, this is one way. And then also, whenever the Yidam as a Buddha, it's also somehow we could call an archetype, which is like symbolizing the qualities that we need to develop and the method to realize that qualities. Then there are other forms of Yidams. They are not precisely a person that reached enlightenment and then after that example is used as a system for us to follow, but it's actually ways how Buddha manifested himself. And he manifested this whole system specifically for the need of one or another disciple at his time. That's where Guhya Samaja comes from. That's where Heruka comes from. That's why Yamantaka and Vajrayogini and so on. Many, many meditational practices are actually systems in which Buddha manifested these aspects, manifested these Buddhas as a way for us to follow the path to enlightenment. So it's not based on someone specifically that reached enlightenment and then taken that as an example, to simplify, okay? So most of the main important practices are actually systems that Buddha taught, okay? One thing which is important in all of this actually, which I was thinking in the very beginning today, is that there are different approaches when we talk about understanding a Yidam. One approach is the approach which is our most Western way, which is first we need to understand, then we like to follow. We have this sort of attitude in which we need to understand, we need to control, we need to know things, and once I understood, then I can actually do it. And when we need to do something that we really don't understand, we are there not really comfortable with it. Okay. The other approach is the approach in which first we experience, we follow, and then after we understand. Okay. Is it possible to follow the first system? First understand and after follow and after practice? I believe yes and no. Okay. In Italian there is a word which is said ni. It's a word in between yes and no. It means both yes and no. Sure, it's possible to understand many things, but then many other aspects that we understand through the practice without having the experience is not possible to understand. But the Eastern and Western approach is quite different also. In our Western way, we like first understand things and after to follow. In the Eastern way, we must have the experience, and from that we can understand things differently. No? It's like the other day I was talking to a friend that was telling me a true story, which happened not long ago, of one man that Western man, he went to learn Chinese calligraphy as a form of meditation. So there he was to learn the Chinese calligraphy as a form of meditation, and he had a very traditional Chinese master. So the master, he went to him, he knew this master was one of the best calligraphy masters, and he knew perfectly how to do all the calligraphy and so on. So he asked him to teach him, he accepted, and then he gave him one letter, like one panel, one letter to do. No? So he taught him how to do that letter. And then he left him doing the same letter for 1 year. Whenever he would come, he would give him the same letter again and again and again and again and again and again. After 1 year, he gave him a second letter. And then he stayed doing the second letter for another year. You know, in our own Western way, we would say, what is this? Come on, you don't want to teach me or what, you know? I learned already how to do this letter. Now can't you teach me the next one? I want to write the whole poem right away. You know? We have this hurry somehow. We want to do things quickly. We want to understand. And we think that once we understood conceptually, that's enough. Instead, what this master did, he kept him 2 years for 2 letters. After 2 years, when he had somehow perfected That letters. Where he knew really how to do it well, when he was really doing it in the right way, then he taught him all the others very quickly. And he could learn all of them very easily. Because he had perfected the basis. Then with that he could do the rest. So in the Eastern way it says, why should I teach you the point 5 if you have not yet understood well and you have not practiced the point 1? Once you have perfected the 1, then you can go to the 2, 3, 4, 5 and so on. But very often we want to understand everything, thinking that, and then if we practice or not is another issue, but we must get all the information. But information just by itself is not useful. We need to practice it. So, I think nowadays we need to follow a middle way, which is, yes, we need to understand some things, otherwise our own mentality do not allow us to go forward. We generate a lot of doubt and so on. But we must have our own experience. Some days ago I was together with Lama Michel Rinpoche and another person, and then this person asked Rinpoche asked this person about something related to practice, and he told Rinpoche, he said, oh no, because Rinpoche, I have difficulty doing a mantra and a practice if I do not understand it. Then Rinpoche said, but it's just like taking a pill. When you take a pill for your headache or a vitamin or whatever, do you really know what is inside? Do you really understand how does it work? The answer sure was no. But do you still take it? Yes. Why? Because you have the experience that it works. But before having the experience, you try it. Same things is with the mantras and the sadhanas and the practice. You must try it. If you see that it works, then you just follow. Slowly you can understand. So Tantra is somehow similar to technology, from my point of view. Similar to many things, but for example, in technology, if we take a phone and we call someone, we can talk to the person on the other side. In the other side of the world, wherever the person is. But do we truly understand how it works? Is anyone here that really have the understanding of it? How come when I speak here, that device transforms my voice from analogic to digital, and many ones and zeros that are put into small packages, they are sent through wireless to some whatever antenna, and that is repeating that and putting all the packages separately, then arrive on the other side, the packages are put together and retransformed from digital to analogic, and I can listen to it? Do we understand how this happens? No. At least me. Is it because I don't understand that I don't trust? No. Why I trust? Because I have the experience. I talk and I listen. But similar to that, we need to have the experience. Then is it possible to understand if I truly want? How many years I need to study to understand how a phone really works? Many years. Is it possible truly to understand? Yes. But it takes many years. Similar to that, to understand the meditational sadhanas and practice like yidams, and it's possible to understand. Sure, it is possible. But it takes a lot of knowledge, it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of experience also. So, we need to have some understanding, but together with that, we need also to do our practice, we need to have our experience. It's like taking a natural medicine that normally before we can feel the result, it takes at least 1 month, taking it every day. There are many natural medicines that if we take them for 1 day, 2 days, it doesn't work. But we need to give the right time for it to give its effect that we can perceive. Our practice is the same. How can we have the result? By practicing, by making a small retreat at least, by doing it for some time, by giving the possibility to feel the practice, to feel the result. And then we can say, oh yes, it works or it doesn't work. Then we can go through that. Once we feel the connection, then we can follow. Because that's the approach that I always had, for example, with Yamantaka. I received the empowerment, was the first empowerment I received when I was 10. And it was a practice that I always did. And I always had very strong connection and feeling and big benefits from this practice also. No? And then, but for a long time, never understanding anything, just doing. Then slowly at a certain point, you start to get clarity. And then you start to put the pieces together and to understand. one of my masters, Genlakpala, he started doing this sadhana, exactly this sadhana we have here, when he was 17. Then he did his whole life this sadhana every day of his life until he passed away, when he was 70-something, 75, whatever. And during all these years, he said that he started to understand the practice when he was 50, in his 50s. So around 30 years later. But then he really understood it well, and he did it, and he continued always to practice with great benefits out of it. So, I want to have these 2 days together, mainly to do the practice together, okay? I just wanted this morning to give some introduction, because we need somewhere to grasp. So I will just take the time still this morning to do some explanation more, to understand a little bit more of what is Yamantaka, what is the meaning, have some understanding, and then after we do the practice together. This is my main intention for us to do during these 2 days. Okay? Well then. In our lineage, we follow mainly the teachings of Lama Tsongkhapa, following the Gelugpa traditions that follow the teachings of Lama Tsongkhapa. Lama Tsongkhapa was a very important master, one of the most important masters of Tibet, and one of the most important masters in the history of Buddhism. And he had many, many gurus, such as Jetsun Rendawa and many other important masters. Many of his gurus later became his own disciples, actually. So great was Lama Tsongkhapa that many of his gurus later recognized his qualities and knowledge and realizations and went to him to ask him to give teachings and empowerments and so on. So, what happened is that at one point of Lama Tsongkhapa's life, he had a direct vision of the Buddha of wisdom, Manjushri. Just like we are here talking to each other, he had the same type of relationship with Buddha Manjushri. So, when he first had the vision of Manjushri, actually, he didn't believe right away that it was Manjushri. He said, okay, maybe it can be just whatever is one spirit trying to manifest himself in a way like a Buddha in order to take me out of my path. Or it can be a simple manifestation of my own mind. How do I know? So first thing, he made some questions, which were very deep, very profound questions, which were not easy to answer at all. If we read these questions in the biography, in the long biography of Lama Tsongkhapa, we cannot even understand what the questions are. Forget about the answer, no? So he made these questions that only someone that had great, deep realizations of the path to enlightenment could answer them correctly. He made these questions to this manifestation of Manjushri. And the answers were perfect. So he said, okay, it's not any type of spirit. But then he said, maybe it's just a manifestation of my own mind. So how do I know if it's really a manifestation of my mind or not? So then he made some questions that were very, very difficult, and he didn't know the answer. First of all, I tell for myself, if I meet Buddha Manjushri, I don't know what to ask. That's another issue, no? So only that is already quite amazing. So he made these very profound questions, and from that questions, Manjushri gave him the most perfect answers that opened his mind. And after that, he understood, oh wow, that's a real manifestation of Manjushri. So from that moment on, during the rest of his life, his main guru was actually Buddha Manjushri, that was teaching and showing him the path and so on. And at one point, Lama Tsongkhapa asked Manjushri which was the most fast way for enlightenment. At these times of the generation in which we live, he asked, what is the quickest way for enlightenment? And he said, is to join together the practice of Guru Yoga, together with the practice of the three yidams, to practice the three yidams as one, inseparable from the Guru, but to practice the Yamantaka, Guhya Samaja, and Hiruka Chakra Samvara. The reason why these three practices should be done together is because each one of these practices are by itself a complete practice for enlightenment. It's a complete system. Actually, only with Yamantaka is possible to reach enlightenment, only with Hiruka is possible to reach enlightenment, only with Guhya Samaja is possible to reach enlightenment. But each one of these give emphasis to a specific aspect that is important. All the systems, they develop the complete path. But each one of them give emphasis to a specific necessary part. So by using all the three, it's like giving emphasis in all the three parts and using each one in what it's more specific for. And basically the three parts in which emphasis is given is the development, Guhya Samaja and Chakrasambhara or Heruka are the two practices which is from Father Tantra and Mother Tantra, which give the emphasis on the development of illusory body and clear light. Okay, illusory body and clear light is oversimplifying, okay? Like it's not very precise what I'm about to say, but it's a way to help us to understand in the beginning. It's like an oversimplification. But we could say that illusory body is the very subtle body in a pure state. And clear mind, also oversimplifying, it's the very subtle mind in a pure state. Okay. So one practice is giving emphasis in the development of the illusory body, which is the Father Tantra, Guhya Samaja. And the other practice, which is Mother Tantra, Heruka Chakrasambhara, Vajrayogini, gives emphasis in the development of clear light. Both are always developed, okay? But there is a different emphasis that is given in one or the other, okay? So, based on that, the third emphasis that is necessary, which is the quality of Yamantaka, is to take away interferences, to eliminate the interferences on our path, the subtle interferences for the path, which is a very important part. That's why in the beginning, normally the path is first practice Yamantaka, then go with Guhya Samaja and Heruka. I repeat, all the systems, Yamantaka, Guhya Samaja, Heruka, by themselves are a complete system. But Lama Tsongkhapa taught the system of uniting the three practices as a way to make the path to enlightenment more fast. Okay, that's why we have these three systems joined together. It's a very particular thing of Lama Tsongkhapa, of the Gelugpa tradition. So, in our own tradition, in the beginning of the path, which is one of the first practices that we learn and we start practicing? Yamantaka. Why? Because that's the system to eliminate the interferences in the beginning. It's not just to eliminate interferences. Again, it's a complete path to enlightenment. But it has this emphasis of eliminating the subtle interferences. Okay? So, for example, one of my teachers, one of my gurus, Geshe Thupte Rinchen, he did, for instance, 2-3 years long retreat. The first 3 years retreat was Yamantaka, the second was Vajrayogini. So this is very common to do first the practice of Yamantaka in order to take away the interferences, then follow up with a practice that would give emphasis in clear light or illusory body. Okay? So, which is developing basically the pure state of mind and body. So because of that, which are the interferences that we need to deal with in the beginning? Because if we do not take away the interferences, then the rest of the path cannot follow well. We are not talking about external interferences. These are easy. We are talking about internal interferences mainly. The internal interferences are our doubts, our laziness, our fear, our selfishness, our ignorance. These are the main interferences that block us on our path. Okay, there are others also, but these are just some of them. So, in relation to that, the practices of Guhya Samaja give emphasis into transforming the aspect of aversion. Heruka Chakrasambhara transforming the aspect of desire. And Yamantaka transforming the aspect of ignorance. Okay, even the name, there are different names that are given to this practice. Yamantaka is called Timuk Shinjeshe. Then we have Guhya Samaja Shedan Shinjeshe. Then we have called Dweja Shinjeshe, which is the name that is given to Heruka also. Which is, Shinjeshe is like the destroyer of death. but it means the one that eliminates like the state of, samsara. So one is the one that destroys through ignorance, through aversion, and through desire. So it's using these energies on the path to enlightenment. So the first part is ignorance. And one of the main manifestations of ignorance, that is the main interference, is our own selfishness. If we're not able to go beyond our own selfishness, at least at a certain level, forget about doing the rest of the path, If we are there just thinking the I and the my and this and that, this is something that we need first to deal with that. So Yamantaka, it's a very, very important practice in the beginning because it has this energy to overcome these inner interferences, which manifest in many different ways. Okay? And it has a specific energy also, because generally speaking, there are 4 different types of energy, 4 different types of actions, or 4 different types of energy. The first is the energy of pacification. Then we have the energy of increasing. Then there is the energy or the action of power or influence or seduction. And then there is the energy or the wrathful energy, the energy of confrontation, of conflict, okay, of destruction, which is called the wrathful action. Let's make an example. We need to convince someone to change his or her behavior. Okay? There are some people that we just go to the people very nicely and kindly and we say, oh, look, it's better for you not to do like this. You need to change your attitude. This attitude is not good. We just give the explanation, nice and kind, and the person said, oh, yes, it's true, and the person changed his behavior. There are for some people that this is not enough. Then over the power of pacification, next step, the power of increasing or increment. So what we do? We give a positive incentive and we say, oh, if you do this practice, you will get this benefit, that benefit. I give you something here, I give you something there. And if you change your behavior, you will get this and that benefit and so on. We try to give some positive stimulation. For some people, that's not enough. Then goes to the third power, which is the action of power or the action of seduction. We try to seduct the person. So through the part to seduce the person, so through the power of seduction we bring and then when we see, we put the person on the change of behavior without even perceiving it. Because we use the very strong energy, which is the energy of seduction, by seducing and to bring. For some people, this is not enough. What's the fourth type of action? Is the wrathful action. Which means I go and I say, or you stop doing like this and stop this behavior, or it will be worse for you. So it comes with a very strong energy, saying, now you need to change this, It's like taking the bull by the horn and say, okay, now need to change, no other way to go. So this is the type of energy that Yamantaka uses. Yamantaka, it's a wrathful manifestation of the Buddha of wisdom. So it's like dealing with ignorance through the wrathful energy, which is the energy of confrontation, It's like when we talked through the teachings of Lojong and so on, that our selfishness is not okay, that we shouldn't be selfish, and so on. And then finally we are kind to our selfishness. I say, yes, I know, but I need to do this, but finally here and there, And very often we have this attitude that I know, but not really happening. Yamantaka gives this energy of generating this very strong energy of confrontation to confront whom? Our own selfishness, our own ignorance. So it's a way of opposing ourselves to our ignorance and to the inner interferences with strength. So that's why when we look to the image of Yamantaka, this is one of the reasons why Yamantaka has this appearance of being so fearful, and it's not peaceful manifestation. It's actually very wrathful, quite violent in a way, if we look. Very aggressive. Yamantaka has 9 faces, which are only the last one is a little more peaceful. It's still not really smiling completely, which is the Manjushri on top. All the others are very wrathful faces. There are a total of 9 faces, 9 heads, and there are 34 arms, 16 legs. Each leg is stepping on one different being. like an animal which is representing the different manifestations of our own ignorance, and each foot pressing is manifesting a different manifestation of wisdom that realizes emptiness actually. Then each hand is holding a different weapon, and each weapon is actually symbolizing a different antidote against ignorance and against our defilements. Okay, so there are many, many different meanings within it, but it has this aspect of eliminating our ignorance, eliminating our selfishness in this way of a strong way. So that's why Yamantaka, the practice of Yamantaka, generates this type of attitude and energy which says, I have no more excuses. Or yes or yes. No, maybe between... No, here, boom, go. And many of us, we need that. That's why, especially for our inner interferences, is this way in between which is like, okay, this is the path, this is what you follow, this is the way of doing, this is what we need to change, and here we are. And so this is the type of energy somehow since the beginning of the practice of Yamantaka. But at the same time, we should not forget that all the practices in Tantra, and Yamantaka included, all of this is always done with bliss. It's always inseparable of the state of bliss. So many people have the experience by doing the practice of Yamantaka of generating a lot of bliss, a sensation of joy. So always bliss is always inseparable in the Tantra. So it's not the energy of confrontation with suffering and difficulty. It's always with bliss. It's also that it's very important that it goes together. Okay? So this is some aspect of Yamantaka. Okay? And then we need to do the practice to try to understand. It's like a very complex practice. We could stay days and months actually explaining the very details of the sadhana and so on. But it has this very special energy to eliminate our inner interferences. Then, as I said before, it's a complete path to enlightenment. But it has this in the beginning. So, in our Gelupa tradition, for beginners, one of the main practices that is taught is Yamantaka. And this is in every monastery we go, everywhere we go, one of the first initiation that we should receive, one of the main practices that should be done in the beginning of the path is Yamantaka. And we are mostly beginners. So I think it's a good practice for us to do. It's an important practice for us to gain the experience also, and in order to help to support the rest of our path also. Okay? Okay. So, one of the important aspects of Yamantaka, but not only Yamantaka, actually all the practices of Tantra, is what we call bringing the result into the path. When we do the sadhana of Yamantaka, it's not that we visualize only Yamantaka in front and he gives us all the blessings and that's enough. And we ask Yamantaka to, destroy our selfishness or something like that. We generate ourselves as Yamantaka, which means that we become the Buddha and we act as the Buddha. There's a big difference between the two. One of the main issues here is that even though I am not yet a Buddha, I act as if I was. And by acting as if I was a Buddha, I gradually become one. Simplifying this example, it is like, let's say we have some sort of behavior and attitude that we know that we shouldn't have. That is not good. As long as I remain in that attitude saying, oh, but I am like this, there is nothing to do, I know that is not good, and I continue to act in that way, every time that I repeat that same behavior, I am just, strengthening it, reinforcing that behavior more and more. No? Making a very simple example, let's say that I come and I say to myself, I have an attitude that I am very aggressive. I need to be more kind towards people. Okay. So, as long as I remain saying I am aggressive, but I shouldn't be like this, but that's how I am, and I continue to act in that way, every time that I act in an aggressive way, I am just reinforcing that habit, that way of being. Instead, if I go and I do, Everything dissolves into emptiness. From emptiness, I appear as a very kind and gentle and nice person, non-aggressive. So I recognize myself into that state. Then I go to the situation, I start to have that reaction, and then I say, no, I am not aggressive, I am peaceful, so I should not act in this way. Then I force myself to act in a kind way because I recognize myself within the state of being peaceful and kind. Then by gradually, once I'm able to act in a kind way, even though it was not coming spontaneously, but I use the method of bringing the result into the path as a way to recognize myself within that. And because of that, I'm able to react one time peacefully. The more I'm able to do that, the more I'm able to reinforce that aspect and to take away the other. Because every time I act in the way how I shouldn't be, the stronger that aspect is going to become. So, this is just simplifying a lot. So what we do is that we visualize ourselves as the Buddha, in this case as Yamantaka, and we become Yamantaka, and out of that, we act and behave. And by that, doing this through visualizations, we actually end up familiarizing ourselves with a different way of being, with a way which is based on love and compassion and wisdom, and without acting with selfishness and generating this strong energy with bliss. So we start familiarizing ourselves with this pure state so that gradually we can develop it. Okay? So the sadhana have this aspect of self-generation, which is called bringing the result into the path. Okay? One last thing before we stop for lunch also is the fact that, generally speaking, to do the practice of Yamantaka with the self-generation, we should first have received the initiation. Okay? When it's done in group, like we are doing here, we will do here today, then actually it is, if most of the people have received the empowerment, then all the others together can do the practice also. That's how it happens in monasteries. When a sadhana is done in a monastery, not everybody that is there have received the empowerment, and it's not because someone have not received the empowerment that he cannot come to the practice. Okay? And here, the practice of initiation of Yamantaka has been given different times. Last time was given here by Kyabche Trijang Rinpoche, and most of us have received this empowerment, so we can do together the practice. If someone have not received, that's not a big issue. Then, to do ourselves the practice, normally when we have not received the initiation, we can do the practice with the front generation without making the self-generation. That's the main difference. For example, if there is any sadhana and we like to do something but we have not received the empowerment, or we ask a specific permission, or normally we do the practice by visualizing, instead of making the self-generation, we make the frontal generation. And that's the main difference that can be done. Okay, this is just a detail. Okay. So we will do now just some recitations of mantra, and it's good for everybody to have the sadhana. And what happens is that here in this booklet we have actually both the long and the short sadhana of Yamantaka. What I want to do between today and tomorrow is to explain also how the sadhana is structured. Okay? Because once we understand the structure of the sadhana, with that actually, then we can somehow do short version, middle version, long version. We will see that the short sadhana and the long sadhana, they are exactly the same structure. Just there are some emphasis that are given in the short sadhana that are not given in the long sadhana. Some emphasis that are given in the long sadhana that are not in the short sadhana, and so on. But now, just before we stop for lunch, we do some mantras together. So we go to page number 64, and then after that, then we will do one mantra, which is Om Yamantaka, Om A Guru Yamantaka Siddhi Hum. Okay? So we just do the linear. Citeremo lo stesso verso 3 volte. We do the same verse 3 times. Kyabda jampe dorje shinje she gyalwa kung che tsun tsong kapa ya se gyu par che ba tam che lam sol wa de so ngo dru nam ni so kyab da jam pe dor che shin che she gyalwa kung o che tsun tsong ka pa yab se gyu par che ba tam che la sol wa dev song o dru nam ni tso kyab da cham pe dor che shin che she gyalwa kung o che tsung tsong ka pa yav se gyu par che ba tam che la sol wa de so ngo dru nam ni so. Ripetete dopo di me, repeat after me. Om Guru Buddha Yamantaka Siddhihum. 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 Jetsun Lama Kutse Rapten Chin Namkar Chinle Chochur Gepadang Losan Tempe Dreme Sasumgi Drove Munsel Tato Negyorchi Nimo Dele Tsendele Nime Koyan Delekshin Nyensen taktu delekpe, kuncho sumke jingelo, kuncho sumke ngodrubutso, sumke trashisho. Omahun, Tembalame Sangye Rinpoche, Gyobalame Tamcho Rinpoche, Trimbalame Gendu Rinpoche, Kyamne Kuncho Sumla Chopa, Locho Sambo Pagyo Trashipa, Tuche Tempe Trinle Yarngoda, Pegye Drolo Zambeze, Pande Lame Shela Chopabu, Socho Choto Traboche, Pawo Choki Choyoche, Duga Dued, Dorje Jigje La Jatse, Kanshi Tremba, Tsamge Chinange, Parche Kunse Leshin, Trinle Nam, Soze Gyaje Shugner, Tensun kordan chela chupabu kenam chujin sowa dabe tu daso kantu nebe sajo ter nedan ulpon tapsu shiwadan chedan tashi pelwar zedu so.